The history of the Bulgarian language can be divided into three major periods: Old Bulgarian, Middle Bulgarian, Modern Bulgarian. Bulgarian as a written South Slavic language dates back to the end of the 9th century. Old Bulgarian. Old Bulgarian was the first literary period in the development of the language. It was a highly synthetic language with a rich declension system as attested by a number of manuscripts from the late 10th and the early 11th centuries. Those originate mostly from the pre-Slav and the Ohrid literary school, although smaller literary centers also contributed to the tradition. The language became a medium to rich scholarly activity, chiefly in the late 9th and the early 10th century, with writers such as Constantine of Preslav, John Exarch, Clement of Ohrid, Chernorizets Rabar and Norm of Preslav. Most of the works are preserved through later copies, many of which are from neighboring Balkan countries or Russia. The name Old Bulgarian was extensively used in the late 19th and the first half of the 20th century synonymously with Old Church Slavonic to describe the literary language of a number of Slavic peoples from the 9th until the 12th century. Although Old Bulgarian is still used in a number of sources with the meaning Old Church Slavonic, there is a growing tendency for the name to be applied only to the language of manuscripts from the First Bulgarian Empire, excluding manuscripts from other editions. Traits. Old Bulgarian is characterized by a number of phonetic, morphological, syntactic, and lexical traits, and *dj are typical only for Bulgarian. Phonetic, very wide articulation of the yat vowel, still preserved in the archaic Bulgarian dialect of the Rhodope Mountains. Proto-Slavonic reflexes of *tj and *dj, use of ra, la for the Proto-Slavic or ol, use of s for the Proto-Slavic ch before the Proto-Slavic I, use of cv, dzv for the Proto-Slavic kv, gv, morphosyntactic use of the dative possessive case in personal pronouns and nouns, descriptive future tense using the verb, use of the comparative form to mean younger, use of suffix demonstrative pronouns. These developed later into suffix-definite articles, orthographical, original, and merged. Sometimes the use of letter was unified with that of. The verb forms narikaha, narikahasi were substituted or alternated with narika, narasesi. Lexical, use of words with Proto-Bulgar origin, such as, etc. Middle Bulgarian. In the period between 12th and 15th centuries, the structure of the language changed quite radically. Few of these changes can still be observed in contemporary written records, thanks to the tendency towards archaicism driven by a desire to preserve the purity of the Cyrillo-Methodian tradition. The phonetic features of Middle Bulgarian include changes to the nasal vowels, which lose the nasal element in the majority of the Bulgarian dialects. The frequent confusion of the letters for the front and back nasal vowels suggests that the two vowels were phonetically very similar, as in other Balkan Slavic languages. Becomes. The yat vowel falls together with e in Western dialects, with some manuscripts confusing it not only with e but also with the front nasal letter. In Eastern dialects the situation is more complex, as is reflected in the treatment of jat in the modern literary language. As for consonants, the east-west distinctions of hardness and softness become more clearly defined, with the hardening of consonants occurring more in the west while the eastern dialects preserve the opposition hard-soft for most consonants. The language underwent some morphological changes as well. Starting from the time of the Second Bulgarian Empire, a confusion of case endings is to be observed along with the increasing use of prepositions in syntax. This linguistic tendency resulted in the gradual loss of the complex Slavic case system, rendering Bulgarian and Macedonian significantly more analytic than the relatives. Scholars dispute whether this has anything to do with phonetic changes, such as the confusion of the nasals, or whether it is purely due to the influence of grammar developments across the Balkans. Also dating from the High Middle Ages is the use of the prefixes and to indicate comparative and superlative degrees of the adjective. The earliest signs of post-positive definite article dates from the early 13th century with the Dobrishevo Gospel, where the construction was used. Old Bulgarian relative pronouns were at that time replaced by interrogative pronouns with the suffix. A new class of verbs developed with stems in their conjugating like the old arithmetic verbs e.g., etc. Another characteristic of this period is the emergence of a shortened form of the future tense marker in modern literary language and in dialect forms. The marker originates from the third-person singular present tense form of the verb hotjeti, to want. The renarrative verb form possibly appeared around the end of the Second Bulgarian Empire, though it could also be attributed to subsequent Turkish influence. Modern Bulgarian dates from developments beginning after the 16th century, particularly grammar and syntax changes in the 18th and 19th centuries. Present-day written Bulgarian language was standardized on the basis of the 19th century Bulgarian vernacular from Central Eastern Bulgaria. Bulgarian, along with the closely related Macedonian language, has several characteristics that set it apart from all other Slavic languages. Changes include the elimination of case declension, the development of a suffix definite article, and the lack of a verb infinitive. But it retains and has further developed the Proto-Slavic verb system. Various evidential verb forms exist to express unwitnessed, retold, and doubtful action.